is a practical look at AutoCAD LT and AutoCAD. When I first got this topic, my first thought was, how am I going to show off 9 pieces of software and compare them in a 30-40 minute webinar? So basically, this is going to be more of information and lecture, because it's just impossible for me to switch to all those pieces of software and show you all the differences and things like that. So I will show you some webinars at the end that will answer some of those questions more specifically if you like. But we're mainly going to be just looking at the software itself, the features themselves, and so AutoCAD LT versus AutoCAD feature comparison. Then we'll talk about customization, collaboration, and constraints in each one, followed by what I am calling the 7 tool sets of the world of AutoCAD, because there are 7 of them. And then at the end, like I said, I'll show you where you can see the on-demand webcast for additional, more detailed on particular pieces of software. So first, just looking at the feature comparison. And by the way, this is not exhaustive. That would be another thing. I'd probably take up 4 or 5 slides showing what's the different comparison of the different features are between the 2 pieces of software. So what I chose were the things I'm asked the most when talking to users and clients and things. So these are some of the features, the more popular or common questions I get about both AutoCAD and LT. Obviously, they both do 2D drawings. They both use the DWG file. They're both very similar in the versions and everything that they use. So it's strictly 2D drawings can be done in either LT or AutoCAD. People could use or create a drawing in AutoCAD, and then someone in AutoCAD LT could come up and actually modify it and save it and send it back to AutoCAD. So they work seamlessly together when dealing with 2D drawings. They both have the same dimension and tolerance standards. So for instance, if you went into either software to the Annotate tab, where you set up your dim styles, that's where you would set up the tolerance in the dim style. Also on that is a button for where you can insert geometric symbols for tolerances. So they both have that same capability, and they're both on the Annotate tab in the same location. You can print batches of drawings from both pieces of software. So in other words, I could open up LT and set it up to batch plot 200 drawings or 300 drawings, just like I would in full-blown AutoCAD. So there's no difference in there that you can do that in both pieces of software. You also have annotative scaling in both pieces of software. Now, if you're not familiar with annotative scaling, I would like to encourage you to go learn it. My personal opinion, annotative scaling came out in 2008. It was the best improvement and most important update to the software, in my personal opinion, since R14. Now, R14 was Windows 95, so that shows you between Windows 95, R14, and 2008's version, they did a lot of little upgrades. They were all nice and everything, but annotative scaling is a game changer. So if you are not familiar with that, I suggest you go watch some videos on annotative scaling, get some training on it. We do training on it, and learn how to use it, because it will change the way you work in AutoCAD. And that's true for both AutoCAD LT and AutoCAD. Both have vault support. One difference though, AutoCAD LT only is supported by Vault Workgroup and Vault Pro. It is not supported in Vault Basic. AutoCAD is supported in all 3, but AutoCAD LT is not supported in Vault Basic. But other than that, they have similar Vault support. The user interface and the menus are almost identical. I mean, you can open up each software side by side, and without really looking at the detail of what's available and some of the tabs and things like that, you can't really tell the difference of which one you're in, because they are very similar in their user interface and their menu system. Both products, you can create block libraries. Now, we'll talk in a minute of more specifics on this, but you can create block libraries in AutoCAD LT and in AutoCAD. There's just some limitation there in AutoCAD LT. Next is file exporting. You can export files from both products, DXF, which is the drawing exchange format, DWT, which is a template, DWF, which is design web format, PDF, DGN, microstation files, bitmap, and meta files. So you can export to any of those in file formats in both LT and AutoCAD. You can import in both LT and AutoCAD PDF and DGN being the microstation files. So import, you're limited to the two, but export, you can do any of those particular file formats. AutoCAD, not LT, also in addition gives you 3D modeling and 3D printing. That's the major difference as far as the modeling part of it is the 3D capabilities in AutoCAD. That means you can do rendering with lighting, materials, and shadows. So you can produce a raster image or a photographic image of your model, your 3D model, using different materials on objects and where the lights are and how the shadows. You can do a pretty good photorealistic rendering in AutoCAD that you can't do in LT. Likewise, you have 3D mesh and surface conversion, which basically that's 3D mesh is a bunch of polygons that define the object, the shape of the object and everything, and you convert those mesh models to a solid or a surface model. So it's obvious those top three are all about 3D, and that's a major difference between them. But in addition to that, even with 2D, you have CAD standard tools in AutoCAD. In other words, it's a DWS standard file. You can put it in your standard layer system, your standard text styles, your standard dimension styles, variables, whatever you want to put in that DWS file. And while people are working, if they try to do something outside the standard, it will alert them that, hey, you're changing a layer color or you're creating a layer that is not in the standard. It'll just alert them. It won't handcuff them to the point where they can't do it. It just will let them know they're stepping outside the standard. When I was a CAD manager, this came in very handy for checking, especially new employees' work. I was able to look at it. It would compare the drawing to the CAD standards. I'd see if they were doing anything that was different than our company standards so that I could correct them early on. And usually once people learned our standards, they didn't really care about they didn't get any messages from the standard tools thing unless they were doing something, because there's always something you may need to do outside the standard. So it's not going to handcuff you that much. The express tools that come with AutoCAD. This is basically a bunch of add-on commands, routines, all for some different specific tasks. Things like block replacement in a global type of situation, or arc text for something that was real creative. You'll have some symbols and symbol builder types tools, layout tools, just a bunch of tools that are more than just a single command in AutoCAD that have been written and are available for free as part of AutoCAD. When you install it, you have to check install express tools. I do a lot of programming, so lots of times before I do any programming, I go look at the express tools to see if there might not already be something there that does the function, and so I don't have to reinvent the wheel for clients. But that's what the express tools are. You also have access to the Autodesk App Store. The Autodesk App Store is where Autodesk and users and manufacturers will put content, and they have an apps. A lot of it's for free. Sometimes, some of the people will charge something, but everything is approved by Autodesk. And you can, within the software of AutoCAD, you can go visit the App Store, download and install the app, and use it from within AutoCAD. So even if you're using LT, you can go through the web and get to the App Store, but you're not going to be able to use those apps inside AutoCAD LT. The file exports, there's a lot more for AutoCAD. So you can see in gray there, those are the ones that AutoCAD LT will do. But in addition to that, in AutoCAD, you can do the DWS files, which are those CAD standard tools that I was talking about earlier. 3D DWF. You can also do an SAT file, which is an ACIS file. That's kind of how do you define this? That would be like an industry standard ASCII file that's formatted specifically for 3D geometry. You've got the STL, which is a lithography file. You've got encapsulated PS, DXX extract, as well as IDS and IGES. All those can be exported. On the import, still can import the PDF and the DGN just like LT, but now you got 3ds, SAT again, the IGES, the meta file. You can also import CATIA version 4 and version 5 files. You can import Pro Engineer files, Rhino files, SolidWorks, and STEP, Parasolid binary, and Parasolid text. I use STEP files all the time, and those are very nice to be able to import those. So you've got the 2 that you can import from LT plus a bunch more, which come in handy. Moving on to customization and collaboration. Both AutoCAD LT and AutoCAD, you can create dynamic blocks, but they are limited in LT, which we'll talk about here in a minute when we go to AutoCAD. But for the most part, you can create dynamic blocks. A couple of years ago, if you would have asked me, I would have told you, no, you can't do that. But I think it was 2024, they allowed the dynamic block creation inside LT. Likewise, that's when they added AutoLisp inside LT, but that is also limited. Now, later when I show you those resources, there'll be a webcast that'll pop up called Boost Your AutoCAD Productivity with Custom AutoLisp Programming. In that webinar, I go into a lot of detail about what you can do and what you can't do, or at least in the examples I'm showing you. This will work in LT, but this will not. Normally, it's stuff that deals with other drawings or other software programs, because that's what LT can't do with AutoLisp, is access data from other drawings or other programs, which I can do in AutoCAD. You have ActiveX. A lot of people call that the .com automation. You can do that also within LT, but there again, it's limited in LT compared to AutoCAD. So ActiveX.com is where you can extend basically AutoCAD's capabilities. You can share drawing data with other applications. That's part of why I said what I said you couldn't do with Lisp and LT. You can automate tasks. Basically, LT is limited that it only can access AutoCAD's ActiveX library, but it can't access any other ActiveX library, so it's limited to AutoCAD's. You can do shared views for collaboration. You can share your views on the cloud through LT so that other people, including yourself, clients, vendors, whoever, coworkers, whoever, you can share views and they can do commenting and redlining. The one difference with LT is you cannot import those red lines. With AutoCAD, you can import the red lines and have it as a backdrop in your drawing so that you're literally seeing the red lines on your screen with the drawing. You can import and export models, blocks, and drawings. Again, it's limited to 2D with AutoCAD LT, but you can import those back and forth. You can import and convert PDFs. That is a function. I did a What's New a few years ago, and that was when they first added this feature to AutoCAD. And it's available in both LT and AutoCAD, but you can literally take a drawing in a PDF form and convert it through some different tools in the conversion process to an AutoCAD drawing. Very, very cool. It's not perfect, but it does a very good job considering what is going on with it. You have command aliases. Now, I call it the pigpen file. In AutoCAD, it's the acad.pgp. In LT, it's called acadlt.pgp. I wish they would have left it the same name, but you can copy one to the other and have it. Basically, command aliases are like you type L for line, C for circle, P for polyline, whatever you set up for single line or single or two character keystrokes to execute a command. So you can do that. The Express Tools alias editor can only be used in AutoCAD, but the regular pigpen PGP file you can use in both LT and AutoCAD. Lastly, drawing compare and XREF compare. That's a pretty cool function where you can take a drawing and an older version of the drawing, or an XREF and an older version of that XREF, compare them, and it will put revision clouds around all the changes or all the differences between the two drawings. So you can kind of see if it's been a while and you don't remember, you can compare maybe Rev 1 with Rev 2 and see what changed physically in the drawings. In AutoCAD, you have parametric design, but it is only 2D. Okay, that means you can do parametric modeling, and you can put constraints on the model. You can do relationships between different pieces of the model, set up parameters so that when the user makes a change to certain specific parameters, the model will adjust accordingly. And because of that, you can do 2D parametric dynamic blocks. That's the part of dynamic blocks that was limited in LT. So if you're in the block editor, for instance, in LT, you would see 3 tabs. In AutoCAD, you would see 4, and that fourth one being the parametrics. Very nice feature. It is 2D only. I have been asked by people, will it ever be 3D? I personally don't think so, but I'm not going to tell you it won't ever, because I never dreamed we'd have AutoLisp in LT, and we do now. So I'm not going to say it's beyond the realms of possibility, but that's an inventor function, and I don't think they would want to jeopardize inventor sales to add 3D parametrics to it. Plus, who knows if it's even possible in AutoCAD. I mean, you got to remember, this software was created, 1980? And it still has a lot of the old code within it and stuff like that. So I don't even, sometimes it's just the capabilities of the software might not be there. But for now, and for as long as I can see in the future, which is not far, it's always going to be 2D. In AutoCAD, you can record keystrokes and macros. In other words, there's a recorder built into it to where you can start typing a command, picks on the screen, and it will memorize everything you're doing. And when you in the recording, you can save that as a macro, and then you can come back later and replay it, and it'll do the exact same thing. So you can add pauses in there where it requires user input. That way it could be unique. So you could have a pause in there for picking a point or for entering text or something like that. But it will record those keystrokes. You're able to create those macros and reuse them over and over again. That's pretty handy. It's in AutoCAD, but it's not and you don't have to know programming to do that. But it's in AutoCAD and not in LT. Excuse me. It seems like every time I do a webinar, I'm fighting a cold. I don't know why. It sorts API customization. That includes the AutoLisp and object arcs and all that. But basically, you can create user interface elements. You can do AutoLisp. You can do the object arcs. You can do JavaScript. I didn't list that, but you can. That's also part of the API customization. You are able, as far as AutoLisp and VisualLisp, you had access to full-blown AutoLisp, everything that it can do. And VisualLisp is kind of a programming environment, so you can go in there and create, modify, run, and debug your Lisp routines. So it's kind of a nice little environment for programming. As far as the object arcs, that's basically object-oriented C++, C#, VB, and .NET. All can be used within AutoCAD. Online collaboration, you can use AutoCAD on the web app. That's a tool to where you can have AutoCAD on your phone and access anything that you guys have in the cloud. You have AutoCAD Desk Docs and BIM Collaborate. All can be used with AutoCAD. Point clouds can be also attached and displayed and make it different colors and things like that, the point cloud. But you can also extract objects from the point cloud in AutoCAD. So I could literally create 2D geometry from the point cloud that is attached on the drawing. I could use it to find center lines, corners, stuff like that. So it's a really nice way to be able to get that point cloud information and translate it into AutoCAD objects. So these are the 7 tool sets that come with AutoCAD. When you buy AutoCAD on subscription, all 7 of these are free. They're part of AutoCAD now, but they're just separate downloads. A few years ago, we had to purchase each one of these separately, but now they are all part of your Autodesk subscription. And basically, they're just industry-specific tools for the most part. Raster Design's the only one that's not an industry-specific tool. But AutoCAD Architecture basically lets you draw doors, walls, and windows. You create floor plans that are all 3D. You can then take and create 2D sections and elevations automatically from those 3D plans. And it's got a bunch of built-in architectural standards, including the AI layer system, CSI, tri-services plotting guidelines, ISO, and AEC. Those are all built into the product. So by the standards, for instance, of the AI layers, you don't have to worry about layers. It handles it for you. You put a door in, it puts it on the correct AI door layer. You put a wall in, same thing. So everything has got a layer control based on the industry standards. So same thing with the other standards. They're all just built into the software to make your job more focused on the design and not so much on the tedious AutoCAD stuff. AutoCAD MEP is built on top of AutoCAD Architecture. So you do not have to install architecture if you're going to use MEP. You can just install MEP. It has all the AutoCAD architecture features, but in addition, it has the HVAC, the lights, the power, the plumbing, all the stuff that goes inside your building, fire protection, and it's built in architecture and engineering standards. So it's got all the same standards of AutoCAD architecture, the AIA, CSI, and all that, but it's also got BS 1192 built into it as on the MEP side. So it's got it's got a few other standards. I just didn't look them all up. Those are the ones I knew to be able to type into this PowerPoint. But those are the things you get with MEP. So it's actually a combination of both MEP and architecture. I like to call these little BIM. If you're familiar with BIM, Revit is big BIM. That's one database for the entire project. Architecture and MEP are still BIM qualified, but they are individual DWG files for the database that are all linked together. So that's why I like to call this Architecture and MEP little BIM. It's still BIM software, just not as robust of a central database like you have in Revit. Mechanical, this is all 2D. There's no 3D in mechanical, but it's in 2D intelligent parts, BOMs, details. It's got a whole slew of tools and libraries for doing fasteners, bearings, shafts, gears, whatever you can think of mechanical wise. It's got it in there with all these ISO, ANSI, DIN, JIS, all these different standards that are built into the product. So it's kind of like a 2D version of Inventor, although Inventor is a little bit more robust, so I don't want you to think it's like Inventor in 2D, but it is the step down for 2D of Inventor type work. When I was a CAD manager, this is the one we used at the time because I can't remember if Inventor was even around back then or it was the early days of it, but we used mechanical for designing pretty much our entire project outside of the piping. Electrical. Ladder diagrams, panels, this is all 2D, single lines, point to point, your PLCs, your circuit design, that is what electrical is designed to do. And it's got a slew of manufacturer catalogs and contents from people like Allen Bradley, Siemens, Schneider, Turk, Worldermeiler, I can't pronounce that one. You think of it, it's probably got the catalog and the content in it. Schneider is one that's on my mind because they had just updated their content in the latest version. Allen Bradley updated their content a version or two ago in an update. So it's constantly being updated with more current content, but it's basically got your IE, IEC, and NFPA standards all built into it. And that's AutoCAD Electrical. It's different electrical than the MEP. MEP is what's inside your building, your lights, your power, your outlet on the wall. That's MEP. This is the electrical more for equipment, and that is also available for free with AutoCAD. Plant 3D, this is my wheelhouse. This is my industry that I came out of. So it does P&ID, 2D P&IDs, 3D piping for process plants. It does still an equipment modeling, but it's not fabrication type steel and equipment. If you want fabrication steel, you need to go to advanced steel. If you want fabrication equipment, you can do it mechanical, but you probably, if you want to keep it 3D like the Plant 3D is, you would want to do it in Inventor. So it's more of a steel and equipment for like a general arrangement. But then it's got everything you need for your piping and process of the plants. It's spec driven. That means it has a lot of specs and catalogs that come with it, that both imperial and metric, and it has all your fittings, valves, fasteners, instrumentation, pipe supports, and a bunch of stuff other than that comes with it out of the box for you to create your specs in order to do your piping drawings. Different standards, or the PIP, which is basically ANSI, ISA, ISO, DIN, and JIS, and it also has in the catalog ASME, AWWA, and other specs that you see on your screen, or standards that you see on your screen. But that's Plant 3D. The last one is the one I know the least about, because Map 3D is definitely not in my work experience forte. But basically it's for GIS mapping and feature data objects, and it allows you to have an ArcGIS connection so that everything can stay up to date. Raster design is basically for taking raster images and converting them to vector objects. So basically raster images, they are JPEGs, PNGs, bitmaps, TIFFs, stuff like that. They're pixel based, so Photoshop type stuff. The larger you scale it, the more blurry it gets, because that's the way raster images work. They get fine-tuned as they get smaller. Vector, on the other hand, is working with coordinates. That's why it's drawings, DGN, PDFs, that type of stuff. So the larger they get, they don't lose their clarity. So that's would be a vector image. So we use raster images a lot in web design, stuff like that. So you can take those raster images with raster design and you can convert them to vector objects. And that's the purpose of that particular software. And then you can put them into AutoCAD from there. So the last thing is, I want to point out to you is these on-demand webcasts, and there you will find, if you search tool sets, you will find introduction videos for all these different tool sets that will give you more detailed information. So because this is where I don't know how to control the meeting we're having, and just to make my life easier, when we finish, normally I pause the screen to do what I just did. But I couldn't figure out how to pause it in this particular version of the software. So here we go. You go to Hagerman.com. Right here's resources, and there you'll see on-demand webcast. If you go to the on-demand webcast and simply type tool sets, you will see a bunch of different videos. There's a series of them called Introduction to, and those were ones we did when tool sets first came out. So there should be something there for every single one of the tool sets that I can think of off the top of my head, but there's one that will show you more detail about that specific tool set. Here's that Boost Your AutoCAD Productivity one I told you about, that will cover the differences between AutoLisp on LT and also in AutoCAD. The only reason I could think of that popped up is because I do use Plant 3D and AutoCAD Electrical for some examples in that particular webinar. So that must be why that is. We have two on the electrical tool set. You have this one, and down here there's the introduction. This one I think is more recent. I'm not sure, but that may either one of those are going to be pretty good. But this gives you a method to get to a lot more information about those specific tool sets. So that being said, well, before I do that, let's go see. Now I got to figure out how to look at questions. So let me go see if there's any questions. Looks like there's some. All right. Can you send a set of slides from the presentation? I can't. Let's see if there's a way for me to make this to where I can read it. Okay, so that's somebody making a request. I'll have to look at that because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to do that or not. So I'll have to ask the powers that be here at Hagerman what I'm allowed to do there. Outside programs I generate, okay, there, okay. Via outside programs, I generate script files for automated AutoCAD plotting. Is automated plotting possible or more desirable via AutoList? Uh, I prefer AutoList, but that's only because I'm used to working in AutoList. I'm not a script file. But I also use script files within my AutoList. For instance, lots of times if I'm generating a batch processing AutoList routine, which could include plotting, I will literally create a script file and execute it in the background. But I'll use AutoList to gather all the information and data because it's more useful for that through dialog boxes and stuff. And as they answer questions that may be necessary in that dialog box for whatever's happening, I will create a script file in the background and then batch run that script file, because AutoList does not work great from in a batch situation. So it's usually your batch outside programs, I would say probably generating the script files is what you're going to have to do. AutoList may be better for, now I got to figure out how to, there we go. AutoList may be better for actually gathering the information. So it could be a combination of both is what I do. Do you have recommended sources for a perpetual license? That I don't know. That's not in, I'm not in the licensing department, so I'm not sure how that would work. We could pass that on to someone in another department. Will the slides be made? Oh, okay. Again, that's somebody answered that. Was, will they be made afterwards? How do I request them? And that's I see that Ashley answered that one. So I don't see any other questions. We'll give you just a minute if there's going to be a question or not. And well, actually less than a minute. And let's go back to here for our closing slide. I appreciate everyone who attended, and I hope you enjoyed and got a good understanding of the differences between LT and AutoCAD.